Hey everybody, it's Cider Week Hudson Valley, and I'm so excited. We are now doing a live tasting with Orchard Hill, and I have these two distinguished gentlemen with me. I'm Scott Ramsey from the New York Cider Association, and with us tonight we have Karl duHoffmann, co-founder of Orchard Hill. Wave hello, Karl, there you go. And we have Dan Pucci, who is a sommelier turned pamalier and co-founder of Wallabout Hospitality, which sounds pretty awesome. I love the idea of being a pamalier, Dan. That sounds pretty cool. Did you make up that term, or does that term exist?
I did not. That term. Eleanor Leger actually has I think she actually has the trademark for it, but yes. She let USACM borrow it.
Nice.
So, yeah, it's a term that I have, yeah. It is what it is.
It's a great one, and it's well deserved. So, very good. So, listen, gentlemen, I'm going to let you guys get to it and start the tasting. I'm going to go behind the scenes. I'll be here. I want to let the audience know, like, if you have any questions or comments for Dan or Karl while they're chatting, please feel free to submit them. We're keeping an eye on them, and we can answer them live right here via this presentation. So, all right, you two take it away.
Thanks, Scott.
Yeah, awesome. So, guys, this is Karl duHoffmann. Is Orchard Hill Cider in Orange County, New Hampton, New York. They're based at Soon's Orchard. They've been there since 2013. Am I right on that date? No,
you know, bad numbers. About 8 years, 8 or 9 years. Yeah. 8 years. Yeah.
And this Soon's Orchard has been there for almost 100 years. But Jeff's like third generation.
120 now. 120 years. Yeah.
So you guys are based there. You're in a partnership with Orchard Hill's partnership with Soon's to make these ciders here, using some of the best fruit in the Hudson Valley, and some really unique topography you guys have there, and you guys have kind of made this amazing project in the last few years, and it's really been amazing watching it evolve and grow since from your humble inception to this amazing, multifaceted, unique stuff you guys are putting out today.
It's true. It's been quite a journey of discovery, and we've always tried to make the best cider we could within our capabilities, and our capabilities have been growing. And so we were looking around this summer, this spring, and saying, "Wow, we actually have a lot of things in bottle this year." It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's really cool. And like having access to such an amazing fruit like that allows you to have allows you to stand in the zone and do some really, really cool things.
Absolutely. And it's really the backbone of what we do is the idea, and even the idea to start this project was based on the idea that, we would partner with the Soon's family and their orchard and use the fruit that's grown here at this place. And it's the backbone of who we are, is those apples and the growing that Jeff and Art and his whole team, Cinto, and these guys produce every year in, year out. They deliver, and they pay very close attention, and they're very thoughtful about what they do. So we're very blessed in that way.
Yeah. And so everybody else, these are mostly former eating, they're also mostly all eating apples that go into the ciders from the older orchards, but they also have a bunch of new, cool, unique, more cider-specific plantings coming online soon.
Yeah, this year we have actually about 1,500 gallons of cider from the Dabinets and the Kingston Blacks and the King David and all the crab apples that we have, and also in that juice are some of the New York specific heritage varieties like Spitzenberg, high acid varieties. So it's not pure high tannin juice, but it's all fruit that we planted, at the beginning of this project and have been planting along the way in order to get what we think would be, higher quality cider specific juice. Mm-hmm. But we also, there's a lot of plantings traditionally at the Soon's orchards of apples like, Greening and Spy and Pippin, Newtown Pippin and Wine Sap and Jonathan and John Gold. And so we have a lot of good, old school table apples that deliver high acidity and a lot of character. So And we think, we kind of approach it that we're making, with that fruit, we're making acid-focused sort of white wine, Blanc de Blanc. And then when we have the tannins, we're exploring what that brings to the table. And those kind of new for us because we're just starting to get the juice from those trees. And so, we have an idea of where it's going to take us, but, we don't, it'll be what it is.
Yeah, who knows if any of this stuff. It's an interesting thing to see this industry grow and change, and explore those boundaries, exploring exploring the ideas of those English varieties, but also exploring the possibilities of those things like Spitzenberg and greening, and also even things like the other things that may exist in the farm, even the Fujis and things like that. And it's just seeing what happens, and how we can do a better job of those things.
Well, yeah, and our trip to Spain was really super informative, and my time in England, looking at what they're doing, super informative, and I think that those humble culinary apples have a lot of potential if you treat them the way they should be treated, as opposed
from orchard to bottling, like.
Right. I mean, harvesting right and getting good acidity, and not too late, but ripe, and then also what happens as far as in the cider making process.
Right.
We've been experimenting a lot with with some wild fermentations, and then developing a little volatile acidity in order to buoy the character, and we're just really excited by how that's transformed some of the culinary fruit into really succulent, juicy, bright ciders that can be very dry, or can be quite sweet, but still really balanced and super, just very seductive. So and in that way that you can take, we were talking yesterday, and you can take very humble grapes like Trebbiano and make great, fantastic wines, depending on how you make them and how they're planted, how they're grown.
Right. There's choices the entire way. There's different choices you can make, and
exactly
make the wrong. And just because you have, just because your variety is only so much of the. It's only one of the choices along the way.
Correct. Right. And all of what we've done all along the way has been defined by the limitations that we've had. Our first batch of cider was made before we were licensed, before we had a facility. We just took the juice and we brought it to another facility and got it done under their license, and then along the way, each step of production has been, a step forward that was, saying, okay, well, we can achieve this new, process with what we have. And so if we achieve that process, that means we can do this, and the next thing. And so it's been a slow development, The latest one we just did with our Northern Spy was we did a Charmant tank carbonation, so natural fermentation, but in the tank instead of in the bottle. We didn't have that capability before, and we didn't have the knowledge about the whole process, and so it was a new endeavor, and we're super pleased with the outcome. It's just beautiful. So we just think it's like another tool that we have to say, well, we can get natural carbonation, but we can do it in a way that we can put the cider in the kegs. We can get it into the bottle, a little sooner, and not take quite as long as a bottle fermentation and a maturation on the lees and all that. The cider that we did that with, the Spy, that had been aging in tank on the lees for a good period of time, so it's not like it's bang bang, but still, the outcome was really good. So we're very pleased. Yeah.
Maybe we should crack open the first cider then.
Sure.
Awesome. Yes, you have the bone dry here.
Yeah, and so we've changed our can a little bit. We've got our New York Cider logo, and we've got also what the Cider Association's been working on. We have the Dryness Scale, named after Ewan Merwin, so the Merwin Dryness Scale, and you can see that our dot here is all the way down at the as dry can be, and that's because literally there is no residual sugar left. And then in addition, this batch has some of that wild ferment that we've been blending, and blending is a part of our process. We never just take a batch of cider, carb it up, and throw it. We always are taking older batches, younger batches, batches that have gone through mallow, batches that haven't gone through mallow, and we're doing different, we're blending those together to get something that has layers and has texture. So even if it's like the bone dry, no sugar, so it's kind of it's delicate, it's pure, it's got layers of texture. And then that brightness from the little VA, that wild ferment, is really buoying. So it's just really cleansing on the palate. And it's really, it's funny to say juicy with a cider that has no sugar in it. But it has a little bit of that like pop that you might get from like biting into a lemon wedge or something. Just that, that kind of really refreshing acidity that just clears the decks. We were talking to Tim. I was talking to Tim this morning, Tim Buzinski, and he was saying, God, it's so refreshing. He said, I felt like I was in Spain. He said, I'm like, not that the cider's like a Cidra, but there's a little bit of that kind of character in some way. So yeah, we're excited about it.
Refreshing edge.
Yeah. And and that's the goal with the bone dry. It's just that it's because there's no sugar, you can just really drink a bunch of them. It goes down really easy. It doesn't start to cloy on your palate after a few of them. Yeah, we don't liquor down at all. So these are at natural strength, right around 7% alcohol. We don't add any water or anything. It's really these aren't even filtered. So we the bone dry is not filtered at all. So we just rack it. The cider's been sitting around aging. We blend the batches, rack it off, carb it up. These are force carbonated, and then now we can them. We have them in kegs as well.
Cool. Yeah, I find that having that really nice texture to it is that sensation that your ciders have so much fruit. They're not sweet. There's no sugar prices. They have so much like fresh fruit flavors to them.
Yeah,
they have this really nice texture to them at the same time. So like Tim was saying, they have nice edges and they're fresh and juicy, but not sweet. There's like sensations of fruit.
Yeah, we always feel like with the bone dry, we love to see like apple skin, like that kind of like you get the not the pithy, not the kind of the solids, but you get the skin, that kind of like quality to it. We always we hope we get some of that in there. And sometimes we, when we use with the bone dry, if we use something, batches that have gone through mallow, then you get, kind of a broad palate at the same time that you get the zip. So it's kind of like people don't know what to expect. It's a little, but we try to get it so it's integrated in that way. So yeah, layers of different things, not just one, but it's always a little different because we don't try to, make it always the same. We just take the best blend that we can make right then, and we put it in the can. And next time, if it's a little different, so be it. Yeah,
so be it. But it's still more or less consistently that always that dry primary fruits.
Yeah.
Clean apple skin profile.
Right. So it's always in the same neighborhood, but the neighborhood you could be in different houses.
Sure.
But yeah. So what's nice about it is, my wife has discovered that there's only there's under 100 calories in a can of this cider. So,
really?
Yeah, because there's no sugar. It's just the alcohol. It's just the calories from the alcohol. So it's really very. We've it's the favorite of our family gatherings during like Thanksgiving or when we're out, like if there's a bonfire at my father's farm, it's the favorite because you can have a number of them. It's low enough alcohol. There's no sugar, so it's you feel like you're okay. It's really a little too easy to crush a few of them,
Right. Totally. Maybe that brings us to our next cider, the red label, which is up next.
Yeah. So the next is our. It's a similar style in the sense that it has no sugar, but it's a sparkling cider. So it's this is bottle fermented and aged on the lees in the champagne style, as the bottle indicates. And sorry about the phone ringing. People are excited to see us on screen, Dan.
I see that.
Pucci says it's good, so we better drink it. So this one, go ahead.
So this ages for 3 years on the lees. So all the italicized yeast cells are in the bottle, hanging out for 3 years, and then it was the score. So that was the scourged. The yeast was removed to a very clear product. But what is that long? What is that 3 year maceration time? What does that do to the texture of the cider, and how does it change the profile? The color looks excellent.
Yeah, so I mean, the color is part of that, right? It gets that biscuity kind of, that all of the characters, the yeast gets broken down, and you get this kind of buttery, like biscuit quality, nuttiness. The apple goes from primary apple to like baked apple, and the nose is very much that like baked apple tart tartan. Like you get a lot of nice, those third wave flavors, and
Cool.
Yeah, and you wouldn't believe that this is made from culinary fruit. I mean, when you put it on your palate, it's super rich, and you would also not expect that there's no sugar, because you are tricked. Your palate's tricked.
That's so much weight to it, right?
Fruity esters into thinking that. I've had people tell me, "Oh, I don't like this. It's too sweet." You're wrong. It's not too sweet because there's no sugar. But it really does have quite a fruit presence, and that kind of baked character. It's amazing.
Yeah, I think that kind of that you're saying earlier, like treating this fruit right and growing it right, you can get these results out of this thing. You're growing apples in a different setting, and then pumping them out in a different way. You're not going to get the same results. By putting in the bottle for 3 years, you're not going to get the same results.
Right. And we're not always going to have the luxury of having these age on the lees for 3 years. We've released them at 2. We've released them at whatever. This one, it happened that it was 3 years, and so it's unique. And the fact that it's naturally carbonated, the champagne method, the bubbles are very persistent, and they're very finely textured, and it's a very different character than the forced carbonation. There's more of them. There's a higher carbonation. The cans can only handle 2.5 atmospheres, so there's just less carbonation. So that makes the cans very creamy because there's lower carbonation. Whereas the higher carbonation of the natural champagne method, those bubbles are part of what trick you into thinking it's sweet, because the acidity from the CO2 is both an acid, carbonic acid, but it also, that carbonic acid, just sort of like I was talking about with the volatile acidity in the bone dry can, the carbonic acid amplifies the fruitiness of the esters and makes it seem sweeter. So like you taste the juice, the cider, before you carbonate it, it seems very much drier than after you carbonate it. The carbonation amplifies the fruit perception on your palate. Mm-hmm. And so the super bubbles of the champagne method, gives that perception on your palate even more, because there's more of it. It's like, so yeah, it's it's a longer process. It's more intense. It's more refined. Like the cans we crush at, when you're in the campfire at the beach, blah blah blah. Whereas the red label is definitely more of a contemplative, like a little bit more of a luxury undertaking. Oysters and good cheese and.
Right, more work, more time, all that stuff.
less bonfire, more candlelight, you know?
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah, I think this cider has such an interesting texture to it, and that's for me all like. I love cider with nice textures, and I feel that's why I like cider as much as those mouthfeels and like that. I feel like that kind of maturation has that nice texture to it, which I think is really pretty cool.
Totally. Yeah.
You want to crack open the next one, the Verde?
Yeah, the Verde. We're back to the cans with our logo, the New York Cider logo, and then we have it described right on the can. The word vibrant is what we really strive to get in every batch of Verde, regardless of variations, because different batches, like we discussed, are going to be slightly different.
That's right.
But that vibrant kind of zesty character is what we really hope to find every single time. And this is, again, forced carbonated. So like this was a landmark for us to be able to produce a cider like this that has a little back sweetening on it, forced carbonated. It was a lot of work to get to that kind of seemingly simple cider, which is actually more demanding on our process. Yeah. It's quite food friendly. It's
How do we compare the two of them? Between the, it says it's more vibrant, but for someone looking at the store, looking at the bone dry versus the Verde, like what's the quick summation of differences here between these two, like in the glass?
So the big difference is that the bone dry can is unfiltered with nothing added, whereas the Verde is filtered, and we add 20 grams residual sugar, so that the we don't use the dryness scale here because it's not about dryness. This is a little sweet. Like, depending on how you perceive it, it's either going to be medium dry or just off sweet. You know what I mean? And that's a perception thing. And it varies from batch to batch. Some will seem more estery and some will seem more acid. And also it depends on hit your palate. But like just most recently, this was on draft at Gramercy Tavern, and at Cook Shop they were selling it, and I think Alex Raj had it at El Quito Pino, and so it's a very flexible cider that can go with a lot of moods. And if you're going to mix it with a cocktail, it goes very well with cocktails. And,
it has a little more acid and a little more fruit profile, and the balance of that sugar as well. So it's a little more like cranked up, you'd say, maybe something like that.
Yeah, because the sugar, just like the acid amplifies the sweetness, the sweetness broadens and intensifies the flavors, right? So the acid will like amplify the fruitiness, and then the sugar carries all those flavors. So so we look for that zesty, juicy, zesty flavors in Verde. And if you think about like the color, it's green. People are like, oh, does that mean it's a green apple? And you're like, it's meant to kind of evoke that feeling of juicy, acid, tart, refreshing quality, right?
Yeah.
We don't just use green apples to make the idea of green, fresh. And if you think about
flavor of color,
Vino Verde and these kinds of like young Gruner Veltliner, like all the flavors you associate with that kind of like drinking experience are what we're going for.
Right.
Yeah.
Evoking color as imagery and all those vocabulary words around that color of vibrant.
Yeah, exactly. Lime and, herbs and just like acid and refreshing and like all the things you would expect to get with that feeling. Yeah.
Great.
Exactly. And food friendly as can be, Chinese food, Mexican food, like all like that's sugar.
Everything wants acid and sugar, right?
Everything that wants acid and sugar, right? Barbecue, like so many things want acid and sugar, right? Ketchup is acid and sugar. So anything you're putting ketchup on, this is good for. Like that's how flexible food this is, right? It's just like, you could use it for anything, and
Right.
it could go from fine dining to,
Whatever.
yeah, a street cart kind of cuisine. Right. So and again, we're not adding any water. It's still not liquored down. It's natural strength. There's nothing. The only interventions we're making there is the filtration, so that we have a stable environment, so that the sugar can stay in the can without it re-fermenting. You got to remove all that yeast, or you're going to end up with, and it does change. The reason we can have no sugar in the bone dry is because it's not filtered. So the palate has a presence because all the fatty acids and all the things that are there aren't pulled out by the filtering. Where when you filter it, it changes the texture, and the sugar brings that palate back. Gets that
right. It subs out the weight and texture is replaced from like all those fatty acids into the sugar profile.
Right, and you need to do it, otherwise it's not going to be stable. Yeah, it'll, especially with this little can. Yeah.
Be quick. Yeah. Let's not go into that warehouse.
Yeah, no. When cans go bad, it goes really bad. But we also have the Verde available on a draft system, and we sell it in bottles too. We have screw tops,
right? So
it's you can reseal it, put it back in the fridge. And when we put it in the bottle and in the draft system, we do add a little more carbonation. So it's a little higher, so it gives a little more.
Even more crank up.
I mean, I go back and forth between, whether I like more, but I tend to like more carbonation. Low carbonation has its own charms, but I find with our ciders, I tend to prefer them I like them personally with a little bit more
cranked up.
Probably because I'm an acid head, and just more carbonic acid, just appeals to me. So I like
all the things about vibrancy and fruit and freshness, it's all gonna be
amplified.
Yeah, with more acid.
Exactly, and I love acid. So I think for me personally, but I think there's a lot of people who like a little less bubble, blah blah blah, and the cans are perfect for that. So there you go. And because it demands it. And I think the way people drink cans too, it's very informal, and so I think it's suited to that style.
Perfect.
Yeah. So
drink the piece de resistance.
Yeah. The last things are our pommeau. We have two of them. The green bottle. And then let me see if I can get this right, the Reserve. And so pommeau is, not really well known, and but it was how we started our project. We started buying the juice from the Soons and fermenting it and distilling it at the Tuttletown Distillery. And the owners, Ralph and Brian, were very kind to us. They let us not only come in, use their tanks, and then use their stills, but also they warehouse these things. And Andrew Emig and I, the third partner in Orchard Hill, we started making these brandies in the pommeau, literally 10 years before we were licensed to produce cider. And so we had all these barrels kind of piling up in their warehouse. And that's how, it was very funny, because when we first started, we were just licensed, and we were, tasting people on the pommeau, and we're like, oh yeah, this has got 10-year-old pommeau in it. Like, how do you have 10-year-old pommeau? You just opened. Yeah, don't expect that we were just exactly. But it was all done legally, because they distilled it under their license, and then once we were licensed, they transferred it to us. It was all good. Yeah, it was all legal, but it was a great gift to be able to go over there and make our mistakes and kind of develop this project. And that's how we established the relationship with the Soons. We went to him and said, look, we have this thing and we like it, but I don't think we're going to be very successful driving around two guys with pommeau in their trunk saying, we made this pommeau. Like, we need to have cidery, you know? And then when he tasted the pommeau, he was like, oh, okay, yeah, we should maybe do this, you know? And that's how it all started. So it was, again, sort of how we got things done was saying, well, we met these guys who just opened a distillery. We could, you know, they're going to let us distill it. Let's do it. You know, it's one step at a time. You know, we could do this. What are we going to do with it once we do that? I don't know. We'll see. But you'll see in the glass, it's, you know, lovely color. And it's got a lot of character. This is 18.5% alcohol because this is the reserve level. And between the two bottles, you got the older one and the younger one.
Do you want to talk us through like what pommeau is in terms of like the process?
Good point. So the pommeau, when I visited Normandy, I discovered Calvados, which is apple brandy. And then I started drinking their cider in France, which they're famous for. And then they had this third thing in the between. It was a combination of young Calvados aged with unfermented cider, and 17% alcohol is typically what you see in the bottle in most commercial bottlings, but legally it goes from 17 to 22 is the range. And usually you see them, you know, the brandy is about a year and a bit, and then it's blended, then it goes a year and a bit again. So it's like 2.5 years in barrel cumulative before they put it in the bottle. But, you know, in the tradition, there's small producers and families do this, and the barrels get much older sometimes. So so that's what it basically boils down to. It's what they call a mistel, you know, a brandy fortified juice or wine that's aged together. And, you know, other mistels are Pinot de Charente from Cognac and Bloc de Gascogne from Armagnac. But also like vermouths are often mistels, like wine fortified and then aromatized. And yeah, so it's very much in the aperitif class. People drink it before dinner or after dinner, just when they're with you know, little snacks, and they mix with it. You can mix it with other things. And
what's generally the ratio of spirits to juice?
It seems to be like.
Or what do you guys do for yours?
Yeah, I mean,
generally,
we tend to barrel. We've kind of gone through an evolution. Originally, we barreled undiluted off the still. Then we went to barreling at 66% alcohol. And then we started to keep our cellar where we age the brandy and the pommeau dry. And so where we've ended up seems to be about 1 part brandy, 3 part juice, or 2.5 parts juice. But basically we shoot to put it in the barrel at about 20% alcohol. And we don't have a flow meter, so it's a little imprecise, you know, but then it moves in the barrel as well, because, you know, as it ages, you lose volume. But because we keep the barrel room dry, the alcohol tends to stay the same, doesn't go down. So yeah, so it's about, you know, 1 to 2.5, 3 parts. Yeah. And it's, we use different barrels than they do in France. We use French oak barrels, but the barrels that we use are formally have wine in them. Whereas the Calvados barrels, they tend to reuse them for years and years and years. And I think the pommeau barrels tend to be, I don't know exactly if they use newer barrels or the older ones. I suspect it's a combination thereof, but usually not seasoned with wine. But ours, we tend to buy the barrels. The French oak barrels are very expensive. And so we found that the way we could get our hands on them was to buy them from wineries and from coopers who have taken them from wineries and scraped them. But they do have a little bit of vinous character that is imparted to the brandy. We tend to use the newer barrels for the brandy. So sometimes the barrels, the brandy will have, be very grapey and red when it comes out of the barrel. So that's part of the character of our Pommeau, which is totally not traditional.
Right.
And in some ways, the fact that we're making Pommeau in New York is not traditional at all.
And the different varieties and things like that as well.
Different apples. Pommeau is legally protected DOP in Normandy. And I think we've had this conversation. You remember when I went from didn't have Pommeau on the bottle to I put it on the bottle. I count us one of the pioneers of Pommeau in America. I don't know if we were the first but we were amongst the first, and we certainly have ramped it up more than most. And and then people saw what we were doing, and I think people have come to it, which is great. And then people were using the word Pommeau, so we felt like we had to get the word on there. And the U.S. government does not recognize Pommeau as a DOP.
Right.
So it's not protected. So I guess if it was protected, then we could, stay away from it.
Not happening anytime soon.
I guess not, which is fine. I think maybe we just have to come up with a Pommeau de New York.
Our own word for it.
The Hudson Valley. I think the French should thank us because we're here proselytizing for their forgotten DO.
Their product that nobody wants to drink or no one wants to buy there.
I mean, I think we're giving it more love than they do at this point, so they should thank us.
Totally. A different producer of Pommeau. I was talking. So like before they made Pommeau, there was this guy in town who was like from Brittany. He's like, oh yeah, taste it. It's great. It's so good. And like every they taste it like every few months. Like this is great. Oh, it's great. Oh, it's going great. This is even better. Okay, now you should bottle it. Like no, don't bottle it yet. Don't bottle it. And it was like 3 years. Like you should bottle it. You should bottle it now. It's like okay, great. Like, now to be very cheap because I need to like cook with it and that kind of shit.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's kind of like the same thing that we saw in Spain, where they make all this world-class cider, but then they sell it for like €3, and so it's. And I think even the Calvados is,
pennies.
I mean, the 6-year-old Calvados they sell like it's too young, it's whatever. But this is a world-class product, so. I feel like maybe we can blaze new pathways for Pommeau in America. And
it has a lot of possibilities to it. I guess maybe talk about some of the cocktail applications of it because it's pretty like it tastes great. It's good for like chocolates and baked goods and things like that. Really good pairing for it.
And what I find is that when people taste it, they're like they don't know what it is, but they taste it and no one doesn't love it.
Yeah, everyone likes it.
Everyone loves it. So it's like it's one of those things. It's like, why isn't this a thing? And so the younger one is not young. It's got 3 to 5 years of barrel aging on it, and it's delicious. And we choose the more kind of the barrels that don't dilute as much, that don't go down in alcohol, that are a little more, strong in their alcoholic profile, so that if you wanted to make a cocktail with it, blend a cocktail with it, makes a delicious cocktail. Came up with this cocktail called the Battle of Hastings on Hudson, and it's half of Dolan Blanc Vermouth and half that. You can hit it with a slice of orange or an apple with a little Peychaud's bitters. Delicious. You can slam it back all day. So easy. Low alcohol relatively because it's fortified. 2 mistels coming together. mistel action, and it's delicious.
Yes, back at West Sale, we used to do a Pommeau smash and berries and things like that. That was pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, Pommeau is much overlooked and definitely due for some attention. It's like,
yeah, it has the sugar and the alcohol and the weight and the texture and this nice like oxidation character to it. So it can be used like when you place it, you might use like a for like sweeter sherry, something like that substitute. Yeah. It has a lot of different functions within that application.
Yeah, we're working on our Kenya, our 1066 Kenya.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. So, but I think it's people go crazy for it, so they love it, and it's we have our the green level. We just got the bottle printed, so we're super excited about that because we got it. Basically, we were having a lot of problems because the bottle was shaped like this, so we couldn't label it right, but it's gorgeous now. So,
awesome.
Yeah. It's arrived to a certain degree. It's like, you're so good, you have to get dressed properly to go out now, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's really cool. And I think all this is a testament of what how these older orchards in New York State are trying to find innovation and to try and do new things to keep these orchards functional and useful as part of our foodscape and keeping them around.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think orchards like Soon's go out of business quite often because it's a lot of work what they do. They work really hard. And Mr. Soon's always says it's like gambling in the dirt, you know. You get hail, you get a late frost, you get fire blight. Yeah, and all of a sudden, you know, a whole year's work could be down the toilet. And, you know, our orchard is surrounded. It's only an hour and a half, 10 minutes from the city, you know. So there's houses all around it. It's not in the middle of nowhere. So, you know, there's a great temptation to just cash out, stop working so hard. You know, it's hard. It's not for the faint of heart.
No,
but it does matter, and I think people. I mean, I remember when I was a kid and going to school, babies. I remember when I was a kid and, you know, we visited a dairy farm, you know, and there were classmates of mine who thought that milk came from carton. You know, they didn't know that milk came from a cow, and they were like, that's disgusting. I thought it came from a carton, you know? And, you know, people need to have a relationship with the plants and the dirt and, you know, and even if that's just coming once a year or twice a year and seeing, you know, the place and picking the apples, and it's an essential part of sort of having an understanding of foodways, and the fact that it's close to where you live matters. And I think that the fact that we can take the produce that's grown here and have that value added product, well, that adds a little extra to, you know, we don't need to use the, you know, blemish free fruit, you know, we just need to have a certain character. And the Pommeau, like we can use, you know, for the brandy, we can use Macintosh, which is ubiquitous. There's tons of them, and they don't have to be that fresh. They can be end of the season, sort of, if they're really ripe and kind of soft or brown. Doesn't matter for the brandy, you know. We can make a very expressive brandy with fruit that you would probably throw away. We can take, and the drops for the brandy, you can pick them up off the ground, ferment them, distill them. There's nothing wrong with that. It makes so it's finding ways to do more with less, you know, and that's the beauty of this kind of a project, so that we can, you know, hopefully extend the viability of important places like Soon's Orchards.
Totally. I think it's really interesting in terms of like we're saying about people milk from a carton. I think as apples are one of the few ways that a lot of Americans actually, it's the only way many Americans engage with agriculture at all is this like annual apple pilgrimage.
Picking of apples. It's true.
Yeah, it's a weird and unique thing that exists. And
it's funny because, our choosing to have Hudson Valley Cider Week in the middle of the summer, which is sort of very counterindicated by the way everyone thinks, kind of is a little bit churlish, because we're sort of like saying, hey, look, our cider is made from apples. The apples grow and they're ripe in the fall, and then we ferment them, and then come back in the summer when we fermented them and put them in bottles, and come and see what we've done with these apples, because the farm is still here, and the people who grow those apples have been doing it all year round. And come in the spring and see the blossoms, come in the summer and see our new release, that we just put in a bottle, so you can come and taste it hot off the press, and that's kind of the thought process behind what we're doing here with Hudson Valley Cider Week in the middle of the summer, because, acid-driven, like refreshing ciders
are perfect.
Extreme summertime consumption, like sit on our patio and throw back some really refreshing cider. It's a perfect thing to do.
Dynamite. I'm gonna bring Scott back in now. He can take us home.
Yeah, absolutely. On that note, I think thinking about Cider Week Hudson Valley happening this time of year. I mean, not for nothing, but the Hudson Valley is stunning. I think if there's all 4 seasons here are beautiful, but besides the fall, the summer is absolutely amazing. So it's a perfect time to get out and around if you can. A few places are having tasting. You guys, Karl, you're at Orchard Hill. You're having people there outside, right?
Yeah. So we have our new patio, and today was pretty full all day out there. People were out there social distancing and social cidering and enjoying perfect weather. And we just opened our cider garden and put the tent roof on, and our activities will be ramping up within the legal parameters that are allowed. But yeah, and we have pickup, curbside pickup for those who are, more comfortable just going home. But yeah.
Excellent. Awesome. Yeah, so I highly encourage you, like if you haven't had a chance to get out to Orchard Hill at Soon's Farm, please do. It's a beautiful location. And it's a really nice setup. So I highly encourage you to do that. This has been an awesome conversation, Dan. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your moderating it so well. And Karl, I'm a huge fan of your work. So thank you so much for being here. We have a lot more to come this weekend, and a lot more of Orchard Hill, actually. So tomorrow, we're going to replay the Pommeau and Isigny Saint Mère Normandy cheeses pairing. And that's where they also make the Hastings on Hudson delicious cocktails. So check out that. We're also doing an orchard tour tomorrow with Orchard Hill. So that'll be really wonderful. And then there's a lot of other things to come for the weekend. So check everything out over at ciderweekhv.com. You can look at the events tab and find out what's coming up, along with where to buy your cider. If you're in the Hudson Valley area and can make cider.
I think there's so many things going on, lots of exciting stuff. And Scott, all the videos from the whole week are still on the YouTube channel, right? So you can
absolutely
kind of scroll through the accumulated riches of the week and kind of graze through if you're
Yeah, absolutely. So say again, Dan?
Oh, I was saying I can never really catch this time, so I've been catching up on YouTube and things like that, which has been great.
This afternoon, we had a little bit of a downtime, and I was watching Stephen and Megan's conversation.
That was amazing, yeah.
Pretty intense and enlightening and fantastic.
Yeah.
Certainly worth an hour of your day.
Absolutely. That was our conversation on race and cider, and that happened actually Monday night with Megan Larmer from Glenwood and Steven Satterfield from Whetstone Media, and I highly recommend everybody check that out. It's on our YouTube channel at New York Cider Association TV. So as Karl mentioned, all the programs that have happened this week are right there on that channel, so you can watch at your leisure. And join us live this weekend for all of our upcoming events.
Fantastic.
Great, guys.
It's really awesome. Thank you all so much.
Been too long. I'm glad we had this time.
Yeah, see you guys. Bye-bye.
Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.